Malakai Bayoh was called the voice of an angel, but there's a reason you will never hear that specific sound again. It wasn't a choice, a scandal, or a loss of passion. It was a biological countdown that no amount of training could stop. This is the truth behind the silent year of a child prodigy. When a 13-year-old Malakai stood on the stage of Britain's Got Talent in 2023, he did something incredibly rare. He didn't just sing, he silenced an entire auditorium. His performance of Andrew Lloyd Webber's Pi Jesu didn't just earn Simon Cowell's prestigious Golden Buzzer, it triggered a global phenomenon racking up tens of millions of views. For a brief, shining moment, the world fell deeply in love with the pure, gravity-defying treble of a boy soprano. But even as the confetti fell and the audience wept, a silent, unstoppable clock was ticking. In the world of classical music, a boy's treble voice is the most beautiful, most fragile, and most temporary instrument in existence. It is a biological masterpiece with a built-in self-destruct mechanism. To understand why this voice is so fleeting, we have to look at the physics of the human throat. A boy soprano, or treble, sings using vocal folds that are short, thin, and incredibly flexible. They vibrate at an astonishing rate, allowing these young boys to reach notes that sound almost otherworldly, existing in a register that feels entirely detached from the earthly weight of adult human struggles. Historically, these voices have been revered for centuries, prized in cathedral choirs and royal courts for their pure, non-vibrato tone. When Malakai burst onto the scene, he wasn't just another talent show contestant. He was already a highly trained classical musician, having performed at the Royal Opera House and the Royal Albert Hall. He had already released chart-topping classical duets with legendary former boy soprano Aled Jones. But classical purists and voice coaches knew a truth that the general public was blind to. Every single time Malakai opened his mouth to deliver those crystal-clear high notes, he was defying time. The very biology that granted him this angelic power was preparing to take it away. It is a cruel paradox of nature. The moment a boy treble reaches the absolute peak of his emotional and technical capability is usually the exact moment his body begins to dismantle the instrument. The first real public signs of this biological shift occurred in the summer of 2023 during the high-stakes live final of Britain's Got Talent. Malakai, who was only 14 at the time, was the clear favorite to win. He walked onto the stage to perform Caruso. As millions of viewers tuned in live, something happened. In the middle of his performance, his voice began to show the subtle, unmistakable signs of a voice break. There were moments where his pitch wavered and the effortless clarity that had defined his audition suddenly felt like a heavy, physical struggle. While some viewers on social media questioned his song choice or wondered if he was simply nervous, vocal experts recognized the reality immediately. Malakai was singing through a physical transition. His vocal folds were beginning to thicken and his larynx was starting to grow. This is the ultimate nightmare for a child prodigy. Imagine being an Olympic sprinter whose legs are literally changing length in the middle of a race. The courage it took for Malakai to finish that performance, hitting a spectacular high note at the very end, despite his body shifting beneath him, was nothing short of miraculous. He finished in 4th place, but the race against his own anatomy had officially begun. Soon after, his debut album Golden was released, climbing to the #1 spot on the classical charts. But even as fans celebrated his success, they didn't realize they were listening to a swan song. The voice that recorded that album was already slipping away into history. But what if I told you that the silent year that followed was not a tragic retreat of defeat, but a highly calculated, top-secret operation? Behind closed doors, classical music's most powerful executives were orchestrating a high-stakes transition that could have permanently ruined his vocal cords forever if handled incorrectly. There was a secret weapon used to protect him during this dangerous phase, a shield provided by none other than a major Hollywood movie. To understand the high stakes of what Malakai went through during his silent year of 2025, we have to look at the brutal science of the male voice break. During puberty, a boy's testosterone levels surge. This hormonal wave causes the larynx, or voice box, to grow larger and descend lower in the neck. At the same time, the vocal cords themselves undergo a massive transformation, growing thicker, longer, and heavier. For an ordinary teenager, this results in a few months of awkward squeaks, voice cracks, and eventually a deeper speaking voice. But for an elite classical vocalist, this is a profound physical and psychological crisis. It is a process known among vocal therapists as vocal mourning, when your entire identity, your self-worth, and your global fame are tied to a specific, delicate sound. Watching that sound disappear can feel like a physical bereavement. Historically, many voice sopranos simply gave up. When their treble voice died, their career died with it, leaving them with the psychological trauma of being a has-been before they even finished high school. Furthermore, there was the intense pressure of the industry. In late 2023, Malakai had recorded vocals for the soundtrack of Bradley Cooper's biographical drama Maestro, a film about the legendary conductor Leonard Bernstein. This high-profile Hollywood project acted as a prestige shield, keeping his name relevant in the industry while giving him the financial and professional breathing room to pull back from the public eye. Instead of pushing his voice to perform concerts while his vocal cords were actively stretching, which could have caused irreversible physical damage like vocal nodules or hemorrhages, Malakai and his team made the incredibly disciplined decision to go quiet. This period of silence wasn't spent in idle rest. It was a period of intense technical laryngeal reprogramming. Imagine having to completely relearn how to play an instrument while the instrument itself is changing shape and size daily. Under the guidance of world-class vocal coaches at his school, the Cardinal Vaughan Memorial School in London, alongside elite specialists in New York, Malakai began the grueling process of vocal reconstruction. The challenge of transitioning from a treble to an adult male voice is not just about singing lower notes. It requires a complete overhaul of muscle memory, breath support, and resonance. When vocal folds thicken, they require significantly more air pressure to vibrate. If a singer tries to use their old treble technique on a mature larynx, they will constrict their throat muscles, leading to strain, fatigue, and potential vocal ruin. The trainers had to teach Malakai how to find his new vocal registers. They focused heavily on the passaggio, the bridge or transition zone between his chest voice and his head voice. Most adolescent males lose their vocal agility during this phase, their voices becoming stiff and heavy. But Malakai's training was designed to preserve his trademark flexibility and lightness of touch, even as his range dropped by an entire octave or more. It was a high wire act with no safety net. One wrong step, one forced high note, and the potential for a lifetime classical career could have evaporated. To put this transition into perspective, we can look at the history of child prodigies who faced this exact biological wall. Al Jones, the Welsh singer who became a household name in the 1980s as a boy soprano, famously had to reinvent himself when his voice broke. Jones successfully transitioned into a baritone and a prominent broadcaster, but the path was filled with uncertainty. He actually mentored Malakai, sharing the unique psychological burden of having your childhood voice immortalized on recordings while your physical body moves on. In contrast, many other prodigies throughout history vanished into obscurity, unable to adapt to their new, deeper instruments. Some tried to force their high notes for too long, permanently ruining their adult singing potential. But in 2026, the classical music world received the answer they had been waiting for. Malakai re-emerged, not as a struggling, cracked tenor, but as a rich, chocolatey, and incredibly resonant baritone. At a high-profile showcase at the Lincoln Center, critics and fans alike were stunned. The young man who once reached for high Cs with effortless soprano ease was now commanding the stage with a mature, cinematic weight. Vocal analysts from leading institutions began calling his transition a vocal miracle. He hadn't just survived puberty, he had conquered it. The sad reason you will never hear Malakai Bayoh sing like an angel again is ultimately a story of beautiful, necessary destruction. The boy treble had to fall silent so that the adult artist could be born. It is a profound reminder that some of the most beautiful things in life are precious precisely because they are temporary. The angelic voice of 2023 is preserved forever on his chart-topping albums and viral videos, but the mature baritone of today represents something even more powerful: resilience, technical mastery, and the courage to grow. If you want to understand the true depths of vocal transformations, click on the video on your screen right now, where we break down the most shocking vocal shifts in music history, and let me know in the comments. Do you prefer the angelic treble of his youth, or are you team baritone for his incredible new era?